Okay, now the call is recording. We can begin. Go ahead, Abhi.
Bhanu, you want to drive? You want me to drive? Is this okay?
No, please go ahead. I made some changes. I'll just pitch in whenever.
Okay, cool. Let me share my screen here real quick. Okay. Screen sharing is disabled currently. Can somebody give
Try
me
again.
access?
Yeah, try again.
Okay, thanks. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
No.
No.
I'm sharing a Google spreadsheet.
No,
not yet.
no, we can't see it.
No. Just click on the screen share again. Yeah, now we can.
Okay.
Now it's starting.
Yeah,
Super.
we can see.
Good.
All right. So earlier today we worked on there's a lot of questions coming from folks around I want to start a lab, how do I go about it, what are the requirements, what are the skill sets you need, how big is space you need, what kind of support will be available. So basically we tried and worked on that process. It's still in the early versions. I'm sure this group will help improvise that by asking the right questions and constructively contributing to it. So let me just walk through the very high level workflow, and then I'll walk you through some of these sheets actually here. So folks will come join the Airtable, fill in the form at the Airtable wherever we are doing the intake for them to come in. In there, once they want to actually join the lab or create a new lab, basically they come to this sheet, which I think we'll have to bridge that gap where we say if you want to create a new lab in a city, then go here. And I don't know if that's already done, Bhanu, but if not, we can actually create that bridge. So it's easy for them to come directly here without asking another question.
It's done.
Awesome. So there's a mechanism for them to come here. And then what we've done is we have created this README first doc. And the idea really is to provide them a top-down approach on what are the things they should know first. They should synthesize that, understand that they are able to support it. And then if they are, then the mechanism is about how do they go on about lab onboarding checklist. So let me start with the README first. In this sheet, basically, we have provided the link to various documents that are critical for successfully starting a lab. So starting with the very first one, here's a doc that actually says, just a very high level introduction of how to start a local lab in your city. And okay, maybe it's a big doc now. Cool. It's just taking a little longer to load. Okay, so there are some videos about why are we doing this, the initiative, talking about the goal phase 2. So this doc will, I'll let it load first because I think we're missing stuff. Awesome. This is fantastic, Bhanu. Thank you so much for doing this one. Really appreciate it. So in this doc, it talks a little bit about the phase 2 goals, which is activating 29 hubs across India, 1 hub in each state at least. And hub is basically at a state level. And then, so I think this picture is probably worth the call out here. There'll be multiple hubs, one in each state. And I'm just going to take an example of, let's say, Mumbai. In Mumbai, or sorry, Maharashtra. So let's say hub one is Maharashtra, and then we have Mumbai and Pune as spoke one and spoke two, and then multiple cities. And let's say in Mumbai, you can have lab one, lab two, lab N, and that's kind of the hierarchy we are building. So folks coming in saying, hey, I want to start a lab. Like now you can visualize how this works. And this is purely to kind of have a efficient, organized, mechanism, rather than like, it's not really a hierarchy. It's just a visual to kind of represent how we can collaborate with each other, get the support we need. So that's kind of a good view, providing that support system here. At a very high level, basically, and this is open to basically improvisation, but feel free to chime in and correct if you guys feel to update this doc. But what we've done here is hubs. What is the responsibilities? What is a brief introduction? What's the responsibilities or things that you'll get support for? So hubs will provide support for, and funding, I think we may want to remove it because it's individually driven. It may be available, but it's not committed. So I think that's just a little bit of nuance, but training and mentorship, knowledge sharing, material supply, sourcing, support for distribution, logistics, like knowledge base for those kind of the things that you can look up for and coordinate with your hub contacts at the state level. Funding, I'll skip this part because I think there's a little bit of nuance there for now, but we can cover this as we get more information on that. Then comes the training. So in order to successfully run a lab, there's a bunch of trainings that we identified. There's a bunch of rules or skill sets, actually, if we identified that may be required. And so we have put those in the trainings, and we will need some support to get those training either through YouTube videos or other mechanisms out. So we'll work on that in next upcoming days. Knowledge sharing about material sourcing, a lot of questions around where can you get this material or that material, what's the cost of this, will this substitute work or not? So those kind of questions will be actually provided as well in the training and for the material sourcing mechanism at the hub level. So there will be suppliers who have been established in the supply chain who we can reach new lab, and they don't have to start from scratch and do all these heavy lifting about oh, this material is not available, the quantities, like all of that should be, at least from a knowledge based perspective and relationship establishment perspective, should be available in this at the hub level. At the spokes, actually, let me take a pause and ask questions. Are you guys able to follow, and do you guys have any questions before I keep going?
Okay. For now, clear from us, clear for sure, Abhi.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. All right, so then coming to spokes, this is really at the city level, and a smaller or maybe medium-sized city might have only one single lab, and that's fine. The idea is to allow a city level coordination, especially for the large metros and tier 1 cities where there is possibility for more than one labs. And so we are trying to have that organization as local as possible, so that the challenges, the coordination, the support system is available within the city. It is more faster, efficient. So if I have a lab, say in Mumbai, and one of the colleagues have a lab in the Mumbai, if I'm missing a part and if he has it available while he's waiting for something else, we can kind of coordinate locally. So having that structure provides that mechanism effectively, and that's why spokes is sort of city towns, and then each city can have multiple labs. That's kind of the organization structure, if you will. They will provide the support to build the M19 Oxikits, responsible to train the members in the connected labs, and then ensure the lab tracks their progress. So this third point is important because we're trying to make sure we are actually providing training and support, and also making sure that people are actually serious about it. So they should actually attend some of these critical meetings, because we are talking about saving lives here. And so they should be tracking the progress of their build and be able to sort of communicate back what's going on. Are they blocked? Do they need support? If like there could be like I'm building a kit and I know that a small part just is holding up the whole process for 3 days, and those kind of information is critical to kind of locally coordinate and be able to support it. And that's why it's important that there's active communication almost at the daily level in at least each city or spoke level. And so that's kind of the responsibility. So there's a city coordinator, if you will, who will actually ensure all the labs in the city are getting the support they need and be able to escalate in the whole ecosystem if we need to actually provide additional support. And then there is the lab coordinator. So this is at as ground as it gets, which is basically I want to start a lab in Indore, and basically I will, let's say if I'm the lab coordinator, so I'm the one who's actually doing the all the either identifying the location, identifying the people, ensuring they are getting trained, the demand management, the supply management. So I'm kind of doing it at the lab level, not at the city level, but I can have multiple labs for sure. But like as long as I have one lab, I'm responsible for all of those. And so I'm also responsible to make sure I'm communicating with the city level coordinators and if required at the state level, and be able to make sure that the units are getting built and not getting blocked. So that's kind of the three roles we at a lab level, then the city level, and then the hub level. And then this kind of can be rolled up in a view where we can see almost on a daily basis that where the units are, how much are being built, what's the problems that we are looking at that needs to be solved, and things like that. So I'll take a pause and let the folks ask any questions if you guys have any. Okay.
Hi there. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, you had a question?
Yeah, so labs
ahead.
are expected to start executing the architecture and start building the component, the oxygen concentrator, and like they can directly the selling and everything like that will be regulated by the upper responsible person. So and also like as in the raw materials will be monitored and can be shared across. The availability of the sources might be shared across by documents or like by the updated documents. Also like the other things, the funding and the suppose I have a small room and I can claim I can start a small lab provided, like I get the equipment and the support, and like maybe I can like make me like I can work with 2-3 other guys. So what are the what are we expecting, like how a lab would be serving like and
Yeah.
on the grounds?
It's a great question, and I'll ask Risha or others to back me up when I answer this, to kind of just validate my knowledge on this question as well. So my understanding is there will be support provided in terms of knowledge and the know-how on how to build it. Also, the support will be provided on how to source the material. There is a possibility, but not a commitment just yet, in terms of how the material will be provided. So it could be funded, or it may have to be purchased. It is TBD, and I think we will determine that very quickly in few days. But the idea really is to mobilize the technical knowledge base, or mobilize the teams at as local level as possible, so that we have the capability to build. Then the only problem remains is the funding or the material availability, because if we know we have a location to build, if we have the know-how to build, then only problem is how to source the material, either pay for it or get it other way, and then build the kit and deliver. Your second question about selling the machine. My understanding on that was you could actually collect funds locally and through your own means, and be able to order the parts and then supply it locally. I don't think there is any control or regulation, if you will, on this. as long as we are all trusting each other and doing it in good faith, and there's no I mean, we all have heard about news about medicine availability and all, but the idea really is to help the community. And so if as long as we are honest about it and able to do it, then the system works, and that's what the intent is. So
Just to add to Abhi's point, Richa here, from a funding perspective, just to also get everyone on board over here in terms of what the plan of action that we've put down also as part of the open fundraiser on Keto and also otherwise is that we're trying to get funds to at least have one prototype funding sent out to most labs, hubs, and spokes from our end, at least to get things rolling. And as and when the funding is available, we want to sponsor more. At least that's what we are looking to. That's where our efforts are also going in from the M19 Oxikit Makers Asylum kind of perspective as well from what we're trying to do here. So our idea is to facilitate as much availability of funds that we have into all these networks of labs and get everything started and rolling from there. So from that perspective is where we're working. Of course, we're also working on the perspective of knowledge sharing. So just to add to what Abhi was saying from a training perspective, the build as we start doing it in Goa as well, while of course a lot of people have progressed in other parts of the country right now. In Goa, what we are going to be doing Monday onwards is one hour of knowledge sharing on how to make it as well. With proper documentation online, with videos and the training sessions that Anul himself will be driving Monday onwards. So we're starting those episodes of training. So everyone's open to join them, ask questions. There will be enough and more shared. Plus, we are also looking to document the process visually as well, so that anyone can take that documentation, pick it up and make it as well. So the idea is to facilitate that level of knowledge sharing so that everyone can get started. From a funding perspective, like I said, at least for one prototype or two prototype, at least from whatever funds that we raise, we will start distributing those funds very quickly to the labs that are identified, can start, get moving from that perspective. Hopefully that sort of clarifies some level of the organization that we're trying to achieve over here as well.
Oh, yeah, like very well understood. Like just like if like once we're able to make the prototype in a unit, in a lab, like that product is kind of registered to be like to be in the market. Like we can, what is expected, like that to be handed over to the hospitals nearby, or like those to be handed over to the particular individual patients, or like, and like if their registration would be required of any such thing, because
yes,
it might be like backfire in case of some regulations. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so idea also this week from our end is to also get some testing and certifications on the prototypes, if possible, so that when we share knowledge as well in the upcoming week, we have a sense of confidence even for the other labs that you'll be, if you follow the kind of process and knowledge sharing, you'll be able to sort of replicate it to most of the extent, and we're hoping that will happen because it should be simple to do it. But yes, we're just working on that piece. But like I said, so once the prototype is made, because it is funded from the campaign as well, say for example the first three, and if it's all good to go from a perspective of the parameters that we need to test, we can have some verified sources in terms of the demand as well. To pass it on to your local ecosystem. So yes, local hospitals, individuals is what we would like to give it to as well, because just adding to a little bit more of the knowledge of what we have the insights on about the use cases of the concentrator. There are a couple of them. So for example, one of the use cases of the concentrator is at the level of, a COVID positive person sort of going beyond the 92% oxygen concentration in their bodies. And that's when the problem of destabilization of this oxygen happens. So that means to say that your oxygen levels can erratically drop and fall. And that's when the oxygen concentrator is sort of used to stabilize your oxygen levels is the first use case where the concentrators can be helpful. The second use case where the concentrators are helpful is inside the hospitals, because most hospitals don't have oxygen cylinder capacities. So what they try to do is, when you're on a high oxygen requirement, you're able, and when the patient is moved to a low oxygen requirement, they put them on concentrators versus oxygen cylinder. And that's when the second use case is. And the third is on post recovery at hospital or at home. So that's the third use case of it. As far as I understand at the moment from all the conversations that we've been having. So these are the three use cases, and we feel that on an individual or on hospital level, if you're able to provide that alternative, that's also there. And another use case of it is that you can also refill oxygen cylinders with the concentrator. So that is another way of sort of using that as well.
That's yet not, I mean, we would like to get to that
Yeah.
point, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, we're not there yet, but
I
that's a
think
possibility.
those are updates and things that we will share as we go along and what all we can do. But that last part, especially the cylinders part, is something that's not been tested or done.
So that's a complicated part. I mean, and also risky part. So
yes, it's also risky. Yes.
Yeah, so we don't know about that, but the first three use cases apply, in my opinion, at least from what we understand from the general knowledge that has been shared with doctors. Some of these insights have come from Chennai as well, where they've been talking, the Diverse Lab has been talking to a lot of their doctors on the field as well. So that's where I think the use cases stand at. And this is how, at the moment, we're trying to sort of push this out. Larger idea is to get the knowledge sharing so that local communities are able to sort of build this locally as well. And I think that's the primary driver of what the whole project is all focused on.
We're also talking to lawyers and with government officials to try and see if we can, how do we get the certification and the approvals going locally and other states as well. However, what I would understand is that, yes, we'll keep updating on all of those fronts as we go there. Shit.
Are we disconnected?
This one might not be connected. You have to go downstairs, huh?
Can we talk about cost reduction in engineering or the other sourcing meeting? I just want to go through the lab start process first, and then we can come back to the agenda about this additional. So sorry, is that okay?
Yeah, please go ahead.
It's fine. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Just want to make sure we can stick on this agenda and then complete this and come back to this other topics. So I think the most important part here was just the organization piece, and I think there's a little bit of more work to be done on this doc. So I think we'll have to close on that. The idea is kind of, this is your launchpad doc. You read through this and understand how the structure is. I've taken some questions that were just asked. So we will, this is exactly what we were looking for. The questions that are not already answered, we will include those here to make it obvious. So thanks for asking those questions. Keep them coming. Going back to the main list, we have build lab list, and this is just to prevent sometimes folks want to contribute, they don't find so they need to find, is there a lab already in my city, and if there is one, they can associate and contribute directly there, and if there is not, then they can start one. So this we are still deciding on whether we will keep this in here or probably better suited in Airtable. I think we ran out of time before this call to kind of make that determination, but I'm guessing this might end up in Airtable, because then it's just easy for everyone to see what's going on, how many labs are there right at the time when they register.
So Abhi, one point, if you can go to the lab onboarding checklist, I have the Airtable forms link. Maybe you can go through that one by one.
Oh, right here. Okay. In the end.
Yeah. That's the master one that which has floated. The one we created is the, I think, row number 8.
Awesome.
Register your lab. Register your lab is, yeah, that's the build status one. Just a moment.
Oh, register your lab.
Yeah. Register your lab. I don't have the form. Let me just quickly ping the link. Registration is still a work in progress. So Please bear with us. Pasted the link in column D. Okay. So, yeah, you have it
Okay,
in
I see.
D4. Yeah.
All right. So this is where we expect, if there is no lab in your city, or if you would like to register a new one, if there is one already and still you would like to create a second one or an nth one, then this is the form you fill, and this kind of provides us with the details on where the lab is going to be, who's the coordinator, and just the details around it. And then that allows us to kind of communicate with you, make sure you guys are where the lab is starting, are getting trained properly, and being provided the logistical support. And then you can start building after the certification is complete. So I think there was a process we wrote about how we certify, right? Was that in this here as well? I think this is actually that top-down process itself, right? So
Yeah.
uh, so once you have looked up the lab location, if you identified there's none in your city and you would like to start one or start a second one, you have filled that form, you got that taken care of. Now the question comes, what are the skill sets required? This is a TBD, but I think we took a high level stab at it. These are kind of the general skill sets we found that may be required, and then we tried to map it at whether you can get this support at the city level or you can get it at the lab. You will require it at the lab level. So there's some skills that are required absolutely at the lab level for you to be successful, unless we define another mechanism. For example, another lab is making just the sieves and you are making everything else, or those kind of things. We haven't figured that yet out. So once engineering finishes their thing and we could further optimize, we can come with those plans. But for now, a lab to start comprehensively, we need some sort of plumbing skills, and plumbing is really like a lot of pipes are involved, and the connections for that, you need to be able to cut the pipe, be able to join them, play with the glues and stuff. And so that's kind of a and quite critical skill, because I think making sieve is one of the most critical and also most time consuming the process in the whole kit building. And so plumbing is quite critical unless we are able to do it another way, like just buy the candles. That's an option, but I think there was still experimentations going on efficiency with the candles. So once we establish that, then maybe this plumbing becomes towards lower end of the list. Some basic electronics, air compressor wiring, wiring of the Arduino and stuff like that, which is also required in the computing section. But that is rather, I would say, at least in my experience, wasn't a lot time consuming as long as you've got the right parts. So basic electronics, carpentry skills, just around cutting wood frames. If you're using wood, if other metal, that's fine too. But the idea is like be able to get the frame built where all these components will need to be mounted. Quality assurance process, this is a TBD right now. We are waiting on engineering to complete. Once they're done, we'll actually put some links here on where are these trainings and what these means. And then whoever is the lab coordinator should actually ideally know the supplier and logistics management for lab to be successful, what parts are in shortage, whether they are available or not. If one vendor is late or not able to supply, then what are the alternatives? So just having that logistical management and being able to track each unit that is getting built in relation to this. And then there's a little bit of finance management required, but I mean, these are soft skills. So we will improvise on this, but just for the lab purpose, 3 to 6 is the absolute minimum to build the kit, if you will. Any questions before we keep going?
I have a question. I'm
Yes.
not sure if this is the right time. So actually, this is pretty good, right? Like, how do you onboard, for different cities, how do you onboard the labs and everything? I'm wondering if, like, the way I see it, it's a lot of small functions distributed, right? So, like, maybe this is again for Richa and Vaibhav. Do you guys think like this is also, and again for Abhi as well, like this is perhaps a time like assigning roles for perhaps specific things, like as labs start onboarding, once we get the prototype ready, because otherwise it will be a huge chaos by the time the Oxikit is ready. Like perhaps we should start assigning specialists for like specific roles. I mean, again, it's a thought. I may be coming from my background, so I just thought maybe it's I can split it. I can see that there's a split of different tasks, and maybe it's time to just people pick up the responsibilities and maybe take up.
So Praveen, just so I understand, by the way, I do agree with you. And so Vaibhav and Richa, feel free to chime in. Actually, why don't you guys go first, and I'll come later.
No, I do. I think Praveen has a very valid point, and I think, like this morning as well, when Abhi, Banu, and I were speaking, there are of course like multiple things that will evolve.
Okay.
So at least from a structural point of view, we thought we should put something to sort of get the process going. But I think at a later time as well, there could be some specific people for specific kind of questions, knowledge sharing, etc., that we can assign, because they might have a better top-down view of what's going on in different parts from the analysis that we would have possibly at the back end as well. So yes, it's a valid point. I don't know if I have the answer to it of all the things at the moment, but yeah, it's open to discussion and suggestions.
Yeah, I think it could be a thing to keep in the back of the head, so that we are not caught unawares when suddenly there is progress, and I'm speaking from experience. Like suddenly there is progress, and we don't anticipate this is how good things will go, and then suddenly we are like, oh shit! Like we suddenly have a lot of people, a lot of information, and we don't have anywhere to delegate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Praveen, just to clarify your question a little bit, and just trying to learn from what your experience had been. My understanding was, if a lab, I'm just speaking from like a smaller town like Indore comparatively to Mumbai, right? So one person being able to do all of these, I agree, it is quite overwhelming, and it's easy to kind of get demotivated when you get stuck into a problem. It happened to me. And so I fully agree with you that if there are people who are with specialized, like if there's a plumber who knows how to cut the pipe, join the pipes, and do all that thing, like it's just super easy for them. It's very natural to them. And so getting that kind of skill is very important. But I guess my question to you is, are you saying this should be done like in a city or a state level, that one lab only does making the sieves, another lab does making other part, and then we kind of assemble it somewhere? Is that what
absolutely not? That will be a disaster. I'm saying perhaps at the makers Goa level itself, like amongst the current people, we start identifying roles where, say, someone is a go-to guy for pneumatic parts. So someone in Tripura sets up a lab and then says, shit, I am not able to procure any pneumatic parts. Whom do I reach out to? One person in one person. So one single, like we split the operations further into, because at least in this case, operations is really, really wide, right? There is pneumatic parts, there is sieves, there is like the Arduino boards. So maybe we identify single person, and maybe it might not be the optimum thing, but it will be better than not having a plan. And it doesn't matter whether it's Indore or Tripura or like Odisha, like Bhubaneswar, for all you know. It's that who, like, creating a bank of whom to reach out to, because otherwise people will start talking amongst themselves, and that will lead to chaos, because everyone, you may talk about 7 points here, but in people's mind it will be 15 different points. So it will lead to confusion. And so I think it's best we, at this time, we foresee the problem. Again, it's not the time, maybe not. But I feel like somewhere the democratic process will stop, and then perhaps Vaibhav and Richa can, perhaps help. Like the makers Goa, sorry, more than that, it's like perhaps we start identifying the, okay, इसको कोई भी lab को कोई भी question है तो किसको पूछना है? Identify.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Actually, we did actually put in the training section. These are the trainings and that are required for a lab to be a lab starting should go through all these trainings, and we can revise this list. but there is a point of contact thing as well, so that whoever is starting the lab is aware if they get stuck or if they have a problem or issue, how do they get that escalated. And so there is a point of contact which is going to be again following that hierarchy, but we are not there just yet. But we have thought about that, how to actually make sure support system provides quick escalation mechanism as well.
Yeah.
But
Because
very valid
people
point.
not
Yeah,
knowing whom to be reach out to is going to be a confusion again. And these things happen. It's not like we are missing something. I'm just saying this based on experience. Okay, maybe it's also time to start thinking about this in parallel.
I agree. Makes sense.
Yeah, 100% on that with you, Praveen and Abhi. Yeah.
Super. In favor of time, I'll try and go a little faster, but don't let those good questions stop. Please do stop me and ask questions. So once we have lab registered, we have the person who's lab owner or coordinator identifies the right people, the skills, the location, things like that. And then there is a form for that, which actually we just kind of viewed what skill sets we need to actually cover. Complete training for the lab coordinator. So training list is here, and the idea here is, again, this is just a sort of a mock, think of it, because we are still in the works for this, but I imagine this will eventually go to a Airtable so that we can see how many labs are coming in which cities, who are the coordinators, what their status is in terms of training, because it's very important. Like, you can't just start building and then improvising from something that was already working. So we want to make sure that you understand what works, and then you train on that process first. And then if you want to improvise from there, that's fine. But I think the idea is to make sure that we impart training on what works. We know we have verified it works, and this is how it works. So we provide that training, and each of these training has to be completed for a lab to, quote unquote, start building. Because we're talking about life, we can't have like a 50% efficiency kit and ship it out, and that'll be a disaster, right? Like, we want to make sure we are able to produce the product with the same repeatable results that we expect and promise to be delivered. So this is why training is critical, and all of these trainings needs to be completed. This list is subject to revision after with review with engineering later on, but this was a very high level communication, reporting mechanism, demand supply management, how the build process works. Each build process will have 7 or 8 sub processes, but we have taken liberty to not include that just yet. So that will be a separate elaboration on that, 7 to 8 trainings more there. QA process, delivery management, how do we get sign off from whenever we deliver? How do we train the end user that how to operate the machine and call for support? So that's part of the delivery. Troubleshooting during the build or afterwards, post support, post delivery support. Point of contact, certification of the lab, validation. So there will be criteria for certification and validation. Certification is more about like, oh yeah, you can start building because you've got the location, you've got the skills, you've got the people, you've done the training, you are certified to start building. We trust that you will be able to build these with the same repeatable results. Then validation is first unit coming out of your lab. After you were certified, you started building, and then we need to validate that are you able to produce the 90+% oxygen purity using the process. If not, then what is missing in our process to help you get there? And so that's kind of certification and validation difference. And so we thought about that. We can revise this obviously as needed. So going back to onboarding checklist, I think I covered the certification already. More like, when do I know I'm ready to build? And that's basically 3 criteria right now. There could be more we can add, but that's what we could think of. You have the location, you have the people, and you are trained. And then funding is a little bit open, but I think we can come back to that later once we have more information. Join and update your lab status on regular cadence. So this is a very important thing. And we were just thinking, so Bhanu and I spent quite a few hours actually trying to think on what could fail, what needs to be tracked at the lab level. So we actually created this lab view. And the idea really is like, we should be able to track every single machine that's getting built. And so where is it in the build process? How do I identify uniquely every single machine? Like if there's 10,000 of them, how do I identify which machine was built where? So in MP, in Indore, in this IV lab, serial number 01 was built. And so we know now that. and then where it's in the build process, and be able to roll it up at the city and then state level to kind of say how many machines are built or under the build in this lab versus in this state or in this city. So that was the kind of structure we thought about. And I think like from lab rolling up this to providing this information at the end of the day, if you will, should be like a probably 3-minute job as long as the data is kept updated. As in, and the reason for tracking this at this granular level is to be able to identify, oh, this one is blocked on the parts, I can't build the sieves. And now you have that mechanism to kind of escalate and say, hey, I've got 10 machines which is blocked on sieves parts, can you help here, right? So being able to provide that intelligence upwards and feed the logistic chain so that we are able to help. And this is why we need to know what's the support you need, and that's why these processes needs to be tracked at individual level for each unit. So it's a bit of work, but I think it helps scale and organize better. But we are open to other ideas. If you have, or somebody has other better ideas, we are able to actually look at that and improvise this sheet. So any questions on the lab view on how we are expecting the lab owners to manage this? The assumption is, actually, let me, yeah, I think this is the view actually from row number 5 onwards, basically. And the status update that needs to go is really this line, these 2 lines, right? Like these 2 columns and rows, some of these, if you will. So at city level, we just want to know in MP Indore IV lab, how many are blocked, how many are shipped, how many are build started, how many are delivered. Pretty much that's because everything else is about your local management and coordination. And then there'll be one other spin-off from this. Wherever it's blocked, then we need to know what is blocking you. Is there something that we can help? And if it's blocked for more than a day, then like we need to do something about it, right? So providing that intelligence and logistical support is critical. And so 2 views that needs to be ideally updated every day. What's the status of the build? What are the challenges that you need help with? So that was at starting from the lab upwards, and then this gets collated at the city level. So there's a city level coordinator who actually says, I've got 5 labs in Mumbai, and the status of this is like 50 units are being built, 40 are in the build process, 10 are blocked, and for the blocked ones, we are missing XYZ parts or XYZ training or whatever issues we encountered. So that's at the city level, and then it gets rolled up further up and say, in Maharashtra, we've got X many things going in X many cities and X many labs. Here's the status, and we should be able to roll this up all the way at the state level and national level. So still a bit of work to do, but open for questions, ideas.
This is pretty neat, actually. Yeah, really.
That's
pretty
pretty
neat.
solid, guys. Great job.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
you guys have really thought through all parts of it, and I think as we go along, it will become functional and very useful. I think it's a great starting point, I think.
Yeah, hi, this is Anurag here. Can I come in?
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
Anurag.
Yeah, brilliant, man. Maza aa gaya. On the front of maintenance and device management side, if I may call it, can we look at the endpoint in terms of how the product has been used, and probably data analytics on that front? If this can be connected through internet and makers can have a cloud, probably at some point of time, I believe once the number starts pouring in, the real impact might help.
I think it's a great idea. It's a question for engineering, and I fully agree with you that I think knowing what's the average usage by the patients from this machine would be super helpful to tune that. There's a lot of questions that can be answered, and just by data gathering on the engineering side. I just noted an action item on that, but I don't know if I can answer this unless anybody has a quick answer on this one here.
That's a good idea, Anurag.
This can be like
So-
a good. Sorry. Yeah.
So Anthony, Gaurav here. So the one that I'm building, I'm using ESP32, and I had already thought about it, like just like pushing the data to some database outside. So I mean, that was something I think worthwhile. I mean, other than the data, what other thing which I was thinking of is, let's say there's a patient at home and that person is on oxygen. I mean, there could be like a set of volunteers sitting somewhere in the world, and they can basically monitor that person, and then can call them up or like alert a doctor or nurse, and then say, okay, this person's heart rate is up, or the oxygen level requirement has gone up, or whatever. Like, so that can all be done. I mean, like, I mean, if at all we want to do so.
Yeah, I think it's a great point for the engineering and the design team to sort of incorporate this. I think I don't have an insight on that. Once
So on
I think
that front, I
think-
have an input. I can help in terms of connectivity. We can get it as an IoT module. We have made some tracking devices earlier in my startup, so we can definitely chip in.
Sure.
Engineering won't be an issue
Okay, awesome.
to get the device connected on cloud, and parameters can be defined by the engineering team.
Anurag, thanks. Can you post this question in engineering, and we can have like Gorba and Anul and folks chime in, and we can like this is really great idea. So I think we definitely need it. So I think let's start a thread on that.
Cool.
Hello, Abhi, Santosh here. This thing is already discussed in electronic group actually. So I've come up with, and Anul also was posted about this, and we were discussing that it will be based on ESP32, and this cloud integration will be next part. Like once the base is ready,
we can do the GSM integration. We can get the vendors. We have dealt with Vodafone.
Yeah. Also in the core design there is a option to integrate with pulse oximeter too.
Cool. So we can.
BLE. That's why it is chosen with ESP32, where there is an option to integrate with the BLE or Bluetooth integration.
Yeah, perfect.
So that was the core idea. So
perfect.
That
so either it
Anul
can
also
be
had discussed like it will be come up with the next this thing.
Yeah, I'll take it to the engineering team. I'm so sorry. Please carry on, Abhi. I'm so sorry.
No, this is good. I'm glad that you brought this up. So great question there. All right. Just in favor of time, I'll try and wrap it up in 5 minutes. Funding, I think Richa provided an update. There will be prototypes provided, and then somebody, I think I may have misheard the conversation there, but somebody mentioned, can we ship the prototype to hospital? I believe the idea of the prototype was to kind of have it readily available in the lab, at least in the city, so that more builders can come and actually replicate it. So more units can be built, and there's a point of reference for them to troubleshoot if something is not working. And so I think, I know we are trying to save every single life, but we are also trying to multiply the effort in order to build more of these machines. So we should debate that later on in another forum on what happens with the prototype. I believe it's a reference model, but yeah, if there are some light users, I mean, we can debate on how we can actually provide some support for that. Funding also, like you could actually mobilize your local city level resources and get funding. And then once you know the process, you can order the material through us or through your own sources and get the units built. The idea really about this is like funds are welcome from anywhere to save lives, and you don't have to wait on anybody's approval as long as you are able to build the same quality product that we are actually looking to build and save lives. So don't wait on any approvals as such. It's more like if you have the funds available, you could order the kit parts and you can start building as long as you are trained and certified.
Abhi, so just a question there. Okay, so what happens when I alter the parts of the Oxikit? Like, I mean, like I know the bigger quantity that we are talking, we'll be like mostly focusing on the Oxikit parameters, right? But if you saw, right, like I got the aluminum thing and casings, and then I was working on a different type of an after cooler. So what happens? Will that still be and Oxikit, and will that can be still be pushed via Maker Asylum, or will that be a separate variant altogether?
That's a great question. I think, and I was thinking about that as well, because I did some improvisations myself in lack of other parts. So it's an engineering question. We should ask, like, hey, what happens if I came up with something that's a little deviated from the original part list or the process list, but as long as we have some mechanism to validate that we are able to sustain the performance, that is, X liters per minute plus Y percentage of purity of oxygen, then you should be okay. And how long that test needs to be run as if there's a deviation. I don't know the answer right off, but I think this is something we should validate with engineering, because at the end of the day, we are all trying to save lives, and if we have another way to kind of crack this and still deliver similar results, why not? I would imagine we should
Yeah,
share that knowledge rather.
I agree with Abhi on that, because I think the whole approach of decentralization and opening this out is to add that value that we get in terms of, changes that can come in from anywhere. And I think all changes can be innovative as long as the output and the results are the same. So I think the M19 Oxikit is more sort of it's not about sticking to a particular type of the design, but more so from a front of the objectives of the device sort of really doing what it needs to do. I mean, that's my opinion on it. It's open to more conversation, but I'm sure if the engineering validates the tweak, etc., I'm sure it's good to go from that perspective.
Yeah, actually, Richard has a pretty solid point there. The bias should be always getting it right, and maybe we simplify it further, like keep 3 or 4 parameters that need to be satisfied. Rest, I mean, that's the point of open source, right? I mean,
so
maybe not the actual point of open source, but
so are we
the real point of this project? Yeah.
Gorba, I just have Web up also to here just to add something.
Yes, so I just wanted to add to that thought as well, that it doesn't really matter as if it's the same design or not. It's not just about one simple thing. It's about the philosophy of being able to create these in a decentralized manner, in an open source manner, where we are able to share. I am sure that all of the labs will eventually be able to come up with their own hacks, which would work more better in their states, their cities, their villages. And that is exactly the point of this initiative. The point is not to just have something which is going to be one. However, from the medical authorization point of view, what we're trying to figure out is, because at the end of the day, there are 2 metrics that will have to be taken care of. One is the flow, and second is the concentration. The other is the fire safety. So all of those will have to be figured out as per if we are making changes to the design as to how that is taken care of. But yes, that's stuff that we will
sorry to interrupt. So the problem that I'm having is how do you manage the QC? Because see, what happens is if one guy messes up, okay, or like one maker messes up, okay, I mean, because this is, it's life, right? End of the day, if one Oxikit maker messes up, it messes up for everyone. It will, right? I mean, like people would just say, okay, don't use it. So what happens then? So how do you manage the QC? Right? I mean, that's going to be the key as well. So that's the reason I'm putting the thought out.
I completely
very valid question.
Very valid question. That's why I said that in the case there are modifications to the design, then the certification and the authorization process of making sure that the numbers are validated have to be done all over again. So hence, in the beginning, that's why we want to be able to send the kits directly, in the sense that pre-curated kits based on the original design, because it's very, very important that to understand that the guys from Oxikit have been doing this for over 2 years and spent over $1.5 million making this. They have definitely tried a lot of stuff. So it's very, very important for all of us and all the labs that are joining to first be able to make the first one, which is super important to be able to get that right. And if minor tweaks are made, then we need to revalidate it to make sure that the output is exactly the same, I guess. Maybe that sort of a process could be there.
Hi, can I add something? I'll just take 1 minute.
Sure.
This is Priyank. One thing which I have faced, and this is something which I wanted to ask for a couple of days, that I haven't seen, means I have a couple of doctors in my family, and they have huge hospitals, private hospitals with them. They are not using oxygen concentrators in their hospitals. They have a huge oxygen cylinders and they're using it for ventis or oxygen provider. Yeah, I'm from Rajkot. I have my in-laws in Ahmedabad. They are doctors and they are also not using oxygen concentrators. None of the hospitals I have come in contact with are using oxygen concentrators. Just now, the oxygen concentrators that are being asked for are from different small communities, different associations who are serving their own. For example, Rotary Club, some caste-based hostels. There are some Sadbhavana Vridhashram like that. Those who are running social, they are procuring 10 or 15 of them and giving it to poor and in the village area. So if we are targeting that, then QA is not so difficult. But I'm not sure why we are considering hospitals, because I haven't seen one working in a hospital. If somebody has, then they can give some insight.
So I think we can, if I may say, just in favor of time, I think this is really a very valid question, Gorba and Praveen. So I've just taken notes on your comments, and I think we can spin off a conversation from this. I do want to call out one quick action I've taken is I've actually added 2 columns here at each unit level that is getting built to signal if there was a deviation in material that was installed in the unit, or if there was a deviation in the process that was used to build the unit, so that we have a signal that okay, there is probably more attention required for these units because there was some deviation. That's just a quick mechanism, but I do agree with you, like this is a more broader conversation about like what's the target audience, what's the certification process. I think we should continue this. So just in favor of time, guys, if you're okay, I can wrap this up real quick, and then if we want to continue that discussion, we can come back to that right off. Is that okay?
Yeah, carry on.
Okay, thank you guys, appreciate it. All right, so I think I'm almost at the end. We talked about funding, establish units to be built, confirm the bill of material and version. I think this is a critical part. I think we haven't yet put the link to it here, but there is multiple version of bill of materials available, and the reason for that is there are various ways to solve the same problem, and there've been some success that I think I'm hearing from engineering groups that they are able to do that. So it's not for the full unit level, but it's at the smaller process level, like how the sieves are getting built. So I was using, for example, like a 3-inch pipe. Somebody used candles. Somebody used something like aluminum cylinders, and were able to achieve the same results. And so how do we scale the process that we are able to uniquely identify what bill of material needs to be ordered and what version of it? I'll give you another example. I blew a couple Arduino boards because the bill of material was missing a 12 volt to 5 volt DC converter, and I was not able to figure it out until somebody helped. And so nobody else should have to blow the boards to kind of come to that same, and that's why we have to keep it very clean. And it's super critical for folks in the building lab to follow the bill of material and the processes tied to that specific bill of material. Otherwise, you will have a bill of material and a different process, and you will blow things up like I did. And you don't want to do that when you're trying to build a bunch of these. So we will have to put some more mechanism on that part, on how do you get to bill of material, like where do you find those in your city, based on what material is available, and then how do you tie the build process with that specific bill of material? That's an engineering question and supply chain question that we are still trying to figure out, but we will come back and update that in here so that it's easy for lab folks to say, okay, that's the thing I ordered and this is the process I need to use and this is how I'll get certified for this unit. So it becomes quite natural in that flow, rather than having to navigate the rather complex process. There will be some thoughts put on ordering parts. How do you order? How do you track? And how, if in midway, if you need to change to something else that is available, how do you validate that it'll work with the bill of material that you were trying to get to? So kind of managing and navigating that process, because logistics and supply chain is going to be quite critical, and also probably the long pole in the tent. So it's still TBD. I think we need to go back and talk to engineering, supply chain guys, and kind of provide that insight. So open for volunteers on this conversation, especially from sourcing folks, because they have huge knowledge about what are the challenges they've run into about supplier management and parts not available and pricing and a whole bunch of things. So I'll spin off that conversation with Banu in a separate forum, but this is the training or task that we are yet to complete for a successful lab build startup. And then just a build process, like overall, I think we'll improvise this over time. Like once I think things start in Goa or other places, we want to kind of dry run this process, like what's working, what's not, and then revise this documentation. So I appreciate all the feedback we've got. I've taken quite a bit of action items and notes from this, but keep them coming, because failure of a process helps us improve, and we want to learn that before we actually disseminate something that could cause a wider impact or larger blast radius, right? So keep your good questions and critique as well coming, so we can improvise this doc and collectively be successful. So I think that's the end of for the most part, unless anybody has questions about things. I missed one thing about the tools requirement, which is actually not covered in most locations, but I think there are certain tools that are required. And so we'll complete this this tab as well as part of it, and then circulate this sheet to everyone. I think that's the end of it finally now. So for lab startup, there's work to do, but this is the first cut.
We just wanted to say that's a really, really awesome job. Thank you so much for initiating that and putting that together. That's an amazing, not just a start, but you've taken it to a very, very beautiful level. So great work on that.
Thank you. I don't want to take the full credit. Banu was there, Richa was there,
Yes,
a bunch of folks
Banu.
really contributed. So thank you guys, really appreciate it.
Thank you guys, everyone. Really good work to start this off, and positive attitude about accepting change. That's great. Thank you.
Awesome. I think we missed one question from Negi, J. Negi. In the chat, he said, the estimated time to start mobilizing, what is it? I guess this for the lab level. Mostly people, so you can jump directly with knowledge and prototyping after people to jumping, decide to jump in. So his main question is, what is the estimated time to start mobilizing for the lab?
I'll take a stab at it, and maybe Webho or Richa can chime in. Others can as well if you have better ideas. I was actually asking the same question to myself. I was trying to start a lab in Indore, and I was actually waiting for certain checkpoints to happen before I would go there. And somebody joined. I think it was Ankur who joined for a few minutes last night, and told us, like, don't wait, mobilize. Like, you don't have time. So get people, if you have the location, have the people, get training started. It's not that we will have like a one big bang approach and everything's ready and working. It will take time. People will have questions, and there'll be a little bit of chaos. And we want to make it organized chaos such that we are able to manage it and make people successful. So if you, so there'll be questions around funding. When do I order the parts? I think that can happen, but training itself will take you guys good, like 4 or 5 days, maybe more actually. If one person is doing all of it, it will easily take 4 or 5 days, in my opinion, to do it. And because you can't just watch a 1 hour YouTube video and say, oh yeah, it works. Because I have been through that, and I've been reading this for like good 6 weeks, and I'm still struggling with certain processes, and we try to improvise that. But if you have people, start now for training, and then when funds come in and prototype comes in, and now you are ready to hit the ground running and start building. So if you have location, if you have people, start training, funds, prototype, this will come in upcoming days. Don't wait for it.
Hi guys. Great. Thanks, Avi. That was a good answer. Just to add to that, we are, yes, I would completely agree with Abhi on most of all of the points over there. What we are doing over here is that we imagine that by the end of this week, we'll have some updates over here in terms of running units, localized paths, what exactly works, what are the shortfalls, everything. And we'll be sharing that live with everyone every day. Plus, tomorrow onwards, what we'll be doing is we'll be hosting workshops every day, starting 7 p.m. on how to build an Oxikit, starting with what we know, which is how they work and everything. And then every day we'll be adding more to the content and creating an ongoing series of workshops that we'll be sharing on what we're learning and at the same time, what we completely for sure know, and put that into smaller modules to be able to teach that as we go along. So the overall estimation, we do not imagine this to go on. I mean, we imagine the entire bit to be about I mean, when I talk about the 2,900 kits, the timeline that we sort of have in our head is about 6 to 8 weeks for the 2,900 kits. It's an ambitious timeline, but at the same time, that's what's required at the moment.
Awesome, guys. So this is to be shipped by when?
Are you asking like shipped by when in the sense?
You said 2,900 kits are going to be made.
So, I mean, the point is that as we start, every hub, as we were talking about, will be sourcing the parts locally and then sending it to individuals. So that's going to start like ASAP. So we're talking within this week, we should be able to sort of start activating labs and start sending out as many things as possible.
Awesome. Awesome. So what's the volumetric weight that you need for, I am running a shuttle between Kochi, Petronet and Delhi via Bhavnagar. It's a shuttle.
Okay.
Yeah, we are getting the Jagriti Yatra train to become a coal carrier for us almost. Like this time, the Jagriti Yatra train is just a chassis. You put in whatever you want on it. What do you want on it?
Oh, nice. That's an exciting idea.
You want 2,900 bogies, then I can give it to you in total. In total, I can give it to you in 7 days. Can we bring down the death rate to 0 in 7 days? You want to take that challenge with me? I'll fund it.
I don't think that is a challenge that nobody can take at this point to bring down the death rate exactly to 0, because that's not going to happen.
Per se. Can we have? Can we just expect some positive news? Give me that channel.
Yes, that we're definitely hoping for, and that's how we plan to take it forward. We want to make we're trying our level best in the
Yes,
way.
man. What do you think? I have solutions.
So I think Chandni brought up. Sorry, what's your name? I'm seeing Chandni actually when you speak, but.
So I'm logging in through Surface Pro. I'm Ankur Raval. This is Chandni.
Oh,
speaking.
Ankur.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I think you kind of gave a good challenge, and I think that kind of encourages we should take some goal on this, as in how many labs we can incubate in next 7 days, and this is just identification and completing the training. It's not to the end order of like having the kits built, but the very first step of any lab, whoever starts wherever they start, is to have them ready, location identified, people trained, and that's the very fundamental structure. So if we can actually take a goal, probably we should take a bigger one, and it's good to fail at a bigger goal than taking a smaller one and self-fulfilling that prophecy.
Bro,
so
what's your name? Abhi, right? Abhi.
Yes.
मैं आपको timeline दूं?
Timeline तो कल जा चुकी है. I mean, I know we talked about
Abhi,
this.
that was a great answer, and I think I'm completely with you on that. I think what we need to do is exactly start as many labs and mobilize as many people as possible. And parallelly, what we're going to do is, as soon as we have the engineering part completely figured out, we'll start disseminating those kits as soon as possible. So yes, let's run parallelly on that. And I think that's a better strategy, because over here, what Ankur, I mean, go ahead, Ankur, what are you saying?
Hey, as in, do try and take my opinions as the strong held opinions but they are lose when you want them to be loose for you. Mine is my fists are full. I'm not going to let them go. I'm gunning for a zero death rate abhi, like literally time wise abhi. That's your challenge. Tell me what you need.
Look, I don't have a good answer to that, Ankur, but I'll say this: we can shoot for say 25 labs in at least signed up and trained for people trained for in say next 7 days, right? Uh, let's see how we sail through that. Engineering is still looking, trying to get the parts by Monday and then start that process. So I see the urgency and I see the sort of push which is everybody should have it in their hearts right now to kind of save lives, but at the same time, pragmatically speaking, like we can't just have people with no knowledge and no training and we are building some crap that doesn't save life. So we have to have the organization in place, and the step really is identify the location, identify the people, get them trained. In parallel, engineering completes their thing, supply chain completes their thing, and now we have things mobilized where people can start accepting the material and start building stuff. So I think it's a great thing that you actually challenged. We should take some goal for getting lab set up, and then we can see like how are we doing.
Okay.
I have an input
Your
here.
number. So Abhi, you've taken 25. You've taken 25. Can somebody raise that up personally?
I'm raising that to 29. Okay.
All right. Vaibhav. All right.
That's rich. Okay, fine. But fair.
I have
Get the
a
Let's
point.
bid this. Let's bid this. How to bring it down to zero. You are at 25. The other number you're responsible for is the death rates in 50 kilometers of those 25. Abhi, you got it? You need to monitor them against each other. The amount of investments we do on one side, geographically mapped. On the other side, how many deaths are happening. You need to give me a location for each death happening. I will
Okay,
find
Ankur,
out
I
why.
don't.
I'll give you the why.
Respectfully, I'll push that back because that's going to distract us from what we are trying to do. We are trying to build something that saves life, and if I start chasing what deaths are happening and where, we are not going to build. And I don't think that's the right investment of our time. My
Of your time.
association, this is more about how do I empower people to save lives, and I'll focus on that. My area of expertise to actually chase how the deaths are happening. I mean, it's just a distraction right now. Like we
That's
can
okay.
see all negative news.
I hear you. I hear you. Mayuk
Ankur,
boss.
I really think this is distracting the conversation, and this is not required at this time. Please, I would really request you to take this offline.
What I feel is like this is the question of scalability. So like if 25 units or 30 units are getting like there, at least those units should be capable enough to scale it fast. If not, then like we should plan ahead, like how we approach it so that it can be scaled as soon as possible as per the requirements. As in like we can start with the 25 units, we can start like training them, and we can like people can start deploying their first POCs. But meanwhile, like a structure can be made as in like if the parts are regulated, okay, they're coming from the same source, their sizes are regulated, and like because you guys have already tried it, like some part of that, if a kit can be made, that can be easily integrated by a kit, as in a normal professional engineer, like who takes that kit, reads the manual, can integrate it, and it is running. So that way, like if we also approach it parallelly that way, like a particular team that is responsible for making it modular kit, that could be scaled very fast if it is required, if the sources are coming in, or else like those 25 units have to be good enough, heavy enough, like trustable enough to scale it in the city.
Yes, the point of this entire thing is to disseminate that information as we learn. We don't want to stop there. The point is to build a network of open source community that's going to be continuously growing. The knowledge base will grow as we work. And that is the point of having multiple brains work together on this from different parts of the world. We literally have the entire global open source community with us at the moment. And that's a great way to be able to push forward and keep innovating at the moment. And I think that growth curve will become exponential at a point when people really start creating these. And there is no other way about it. When it comes to an immediate short-term solution, there are multiple other people and other groups trying that, and you can possibly try those too. This, what we feel, is a much more longer lasting solution that will not just solve this problem, but be able to create a backbone to solve hundreds and thousands of other problems that the country would face in the future. So any which ways, that's just our personal thoughts, and some of us believe that's what we're here for.
Perfect.
Cool.
So
I think
sorry, Abhi, I think you're done with the update. I think that was fantastic. I think we've gotten a great kickstart. We have a goal in mind also for this week, so which is even better. So I think all of us can go towards and focus towards that goal of 25, 29 labs coming in this week, at least establish the hubs across different states and bring that momentum to the whole initiative. So I think that's a great starting point from this entire call. If you want to sort of close on it, please go ahead. Maybe we can have some more people update, but in the interest of time, maybe today's update can be this one. And I think this is an important one that we should share with the whole group as well.
I just wanted to wrap up with one more thing. Maybe Bhanu, Richa, you and I, we three can actually collaborate and kind of put the polishing touch on this doc. And then I would request everybody to kind of broadcast this to your employer groups or whatever access you have to other communities where we want the labs to sign up, and that will help expedite that. So if we take a target to get that broadcast out by Monday, I'm hoping that by next Friday or even before, we should have that. So let's spend some more time on polishing this doc, make it super easy for people to follow through and qualify whether they want to open a lab or they just want to participate in it, and then get the message out. I think we'll, like, 29 is a very quick order to fill in for 29 labs, in my opinion, as long as people are able to broadcast that. So let's try and close that out maybe today.
Yep, I'm on that with you. Let's regroup tomorrow again. Bhanu, you and I, and anyone else, of course, is open to come in and help us out as well. We are on the lab and community group, I think, all of us on the Telegram. So if anybody over there wants to join in, can join in as well. So perfect. I think we have a great target. I'm super excited. And let's push this forward. I'll pass it on to anyone else who would like to possibly update, if there is any. Else we can also call it a day today, because there's a lot of work as well that we have to.
I'll jump in.
Yeah, go for it.
The rest of the team members, just make sure that this is a time where you are not busy and sort of like your work is happening in parallel. This is your off time. Then I can take on.
Sorry, I did not get you, Ankur. Sorry, what?
As in, guys should not be missing out on something for this call. We'll record and send it to them. So just keep a core group which wants to have a discussion.
Yeah, please.
Which represent the maker community in India and open source community all over the world.
Yeah, we get your point, Ankur. We get your point. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
So I am representing a compound called XH2. Okay. Since the lockdown happened last year.
I'm logging off, guys. Okay, bye. Good night.
That's what I meant. Like we can have the bye-byes and then I'll resume. So